I'm reading the amazing story of 20 remarkable people in God's Firestarters, preparing our families for coming revival. Well, the story that I read this morning was the story of Katharina Luther, Reformation Firestarter, 1499 to 1552. Imagine she was married to Martin Luther. I didn't even know Martin Luther was married. Let's find out about it. A wife of noble character who can find. She is worth far more than rubles. Proverbs 31:10. Katharina, and 11 other nuns escaped on Easter Eve of 1523, one of the few nights they were permitted to stay up late. At the Cistercian convent of Marienthron in Nimspend, Saxony, in the Holy Roman Empire, now modern-day Germany, Katharina von Bora was eager to be part of the new reform movement. Leonhard Kuppe delivered herring in barrels to the Nibschen convent and secretly exchanged the herring for 12 hidden nuns hidden in and among the barrels. It has been described as one of the most stunning jailbreaks in history. A year later, a man was executed for aiding a similar escape. In 1524, the year after Katharina escaped the convent, Luther published a pamphlet called A Story of How God Rescued an Honorable Nun. This told the true story of a young woman named Florentina. She was shipped off to a convent at age 6 and flogged and imprisoned in a convent prison cell as an adult when she tried to leave. Luther also wrote about children pushed into the nunneries by unmerciful parents who treated their own so cruelly, unquote. When these other nuns tried to leave, they would be arrested and even beaten. Luther commented, "No vow is valid unless it's been made willingly and with love." Martin Luther's job was to find husbands for the escaped nuns, something he accomplished except with the complicated Kate. She had become romantically attached to Jerome Baumgartner, a young man close to her in age. With many kisses, he promised that he would return to Wittenberg and marry her. But his mother caught wind of this and forced him to return to his hometown. She did not want her son marrying a disgraced former nun with no dowry. At age 24, Kate was considered too old to be married. Luther wrote Jerome on October 12, 1524, "If you want to hold on to your Kate von Bora, you'd better hurry up before she's given to some other suitor who's on hand. Until now, she has not gotten over her love for you, and I would be very pleased if the two of you were united with one another in marriage." Jerome's parent instead married him off to a wealthy 14-year-old heiress. Luther then tried to marry Kate off to the aged Dr. Kaspar Glatz. She turned in desperation to Luther's colleague Nicholas von Amsdorf, saying she would gladly accept a proposal from Amsdorf or Luther, but not from Glatz. Amsdorf met with Luther saying, "What the devil are you doing, trying to coach the good Kate to marry that old cheapskate whom she neither desires nor considers with all her heart as husband?" Luther responded, "Well, what devil would want her then? If she doesn't like him, she may have to wait a good while for another one." After Luther asked Katharina just what he was to do with her, she said, "Well, you could marry me yourself." This deeply shocked Luther, as he saw himself as over the hill at age 42, as well as likely to be martyred. He consulted his father, Hans Luther, for advice. Surprisingly, his father wanted Martin to settle down and give him some grandchildren, so Martin Luther decided to wed Katharina. 500 years ago, Luther's Reformation allowed pastors, priests, to marry for the first time in over 500 years. Marriage and family went from being second best to being something to be celebrated. Many priests, housekeepers with the priest's own illegitimate children, were then promoted to becoming legal clergy wives. Some suggest that allowing priests to marry was even more shocking than the doctrine of justification by grace through faith. Many were scandalized that Luther not only endorsed pastors marrying, but took the plunge himself into marrying Kate in 1525. King Henry VIII of England, famous for marrying and divorcing several wives, ironically accused Luther of starting the Reformation out of sheer lust. In 1527, Henry VIII sponsored a stage play mocking the marriage of Luther and Katharina, accusing them of spiritual incest in taking a monastic sister to bed. A widely circulated pamphlet spoke about The married Kate Luther. Woe to you, poor fallen woman, and your damnable, shameful life. Ooh. At age 5, Katharina von Bora, because of her new stepmother, had been sent to a convent by her father. Her new stepmother didn't want any other children in the house. The convent was run by Katharina's aunt. The nuns were pleased to receive future new nuns and appreciated the financial donations from the young girl's relatives. Years later, Martin commented about their getting married. I never loved Kate then, for I suspected her of being proud, as she is, but God willed me to take compassion on the poor, abandoned girl. When Kate learned that she would marry Martin, she prayed, Now I shall no longer be Katharina, runaway nun. I shall be the wife of the great Dr. Luther, and everything I do or say will reflect upon him. It is like an assignment from God. God, keep me humble. Help me to be a good wife to your servant, Dr. Luther, and perhaps to your father. You can also manage to give me a little love and happiness. After marrying on June 13th, 1525, the Luthers made the former Augustinian Black Cloister Monastery their home. Luther, as a former confirmed bachelor, commented, there's a lot to get used to in the first year of marriage. One wakes up in the morning and finds a pair of pigtails on the pillow, which were not there before. Katharina also shocked Martin by putting up curtains and washing the bed sheets. He observed, before I was married, the bed was not made for a whole year and became foul with sweat. Katharina was a true biblical Martha, always working and serving her family. Drawing on her nunnery experience, she was up at 4 a.m. each morning, causing Luther to call her the Morning Star of Wittenberg. She provided a financial and emotional stability in Martin's life that helped him be more grounded. Martin, being an ex-monk, refused to even charge his students for attending his lectures or be paid for his books. He was also radically generous, even co-signing expensive loans on which others defaulted. Fortunately, Katharina was a gifted businesswoman who turned their home into a profit-making hostel for students and others. Luther commented, I am rich. God has given me my nun and 3 children. What care if I'm in debt? Kate pays the bills. With 40 rooms alone on the ground floor of her Black Cloister home, Kate functioned as a Protestant abbess. She was busy with a motley crowd of boys, students, girls, widows, old men, and youngsters. Kate and Martin Luther had 6 children, 2 of whom did not make it to adulthood. Hans, June 1526, Elizabeth, 10th of December, 1527, who died within a few months, Magdalena, 1529, who died in Luther's arms in 1542, Martin, 1531, Paul in January 1533, and Margaret, 1534. The death of their daughter Magdalena at age 13 was a great sorrow to her parents. With her sheer energy, Kate gave Martin the local base for a global reformation. In a 1535 letter, Martin wrote that his Lord Katie was busy planting crops, preparing pastures, and selling cattle. She became a gardener, fisher, fruit grower, cattle and horse breeder, cook, beekeeper, provisioner, nurse, and vintner. Serving as Luther's publishing agent, she looked after the task of printing and distributing his prolific writings. Luther insightfully commented, Marriage is a better school for character than any monastery, for it's here that your sharp corners are rubbed off. Over time, they developed a very romantic marriage. As Luther commented, kiss and re-kiss your wife. A married life is a paradise, even when all else is wanting. He began to write about Kate as my true love and my sweetheart. In Table Talk, Luther commented, I would not trade my Kate for France and Venice for 3 reasons. Number 1, because God has given her to me and me to her. Number 2, I have seen time and again that other women have more faults than my Kate. And number 3, she is a faithful marriage partner. She is loyal and has integrity. Kate, Martin said, you have a God-fearing man who loves you. You are an empress. Realize it and thank God for it. Sadly, Kate suffered greatly after Martin Luther died in 1546. Cast out of her monastery by militia and the Black Plague, she was forced to flee for her life. Her buildings, cattle, and beloved farm animals were all destroyed or killed. In 1552, while escaping from enemy soldiers, her ox cart overturned. Landing in a watery ditch, she died shortly after. We thank God for Kate's sacrificial leader that helped bring worldwide change. She was a fire starter. Ed and Janice, thanks for this great book, God's Firestarters.